Shyamat Shavalam Prapadye Shyamat Shavalam Prapadye Shavalam 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 Shyamat Shavalam Prapadye Shyamat Shavalam Prapadye Shavalat 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 Shama Prapadye Shavalan Shavalan Shyamat Shavalam Prapadye Shavala Shavala Shavalat 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 Shyamam Prapadye Ashva iva romani vidhuya papam Chandra iva raho mukhat pramochya Dhutva shariram akritam kritatma brahma-lokam abhisambhavani abhisambhavani brahma-lokam abhisambhavani 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 brahma-lokam abhisambhavani Shyamat Shavalam Prapadye Shyamat Shavalam Prapadye Shavalat 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 Shyamam Prapadye Nama Srishtham Manumapi Shachi Putramatra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajamurupurim Mathurim Goshtavatim Radha Kundamagiri Paramaho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Prasita Kripaya Sri Gurum Tangatosmi Sri Guru Tannato Nindantam pulakotkarena vikasatanipa prasuna chavin Prodvikritya bhujadvayam hari hari tyuchaya vadantam muhu Nrityantam galadasru nirjarachayai sinchantamurvi talam Gayantam nijapasadaih parivritam Tam godam eva stuma Alibhih paripalita prabalita ksanandamalokita Pratyasam sumanak palodaya vidha samodamamodita Vrindaranya bhumi prakasha madhura sarvati shayi sriya Radha Madhavayo pramodayatu mam ulalasa kalpa drumaha Radha Madhavayo pramodayatu mam ulalasa kalpa drumaha Ullalasa kalpa drumaha Jaya Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Chai Gosaira Kari Charana Bandhan Jaha Haite Vignanash Abhishta Puran Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Jai Jai Sri Radhe. So, yesterday we were talking about Shamat Savalam Prapade, Savalat Shamam Prapade. The basic idea is let go from the darkness to the light and from the lightness to the dark, and this procedure is going on infinitely. And this is the process of understanding and growth. The process of understanding growth and growth of understanding is all dependent on this binary, yes and no. So, where does one position oneself in yes and no? The position is that one transcends yes and no. The one encompasses both yes and no. Right? So that is why we have this idea of the brahma-loka. So now brahma-loka means the world of manifest variety that is Brahman. So now the Upanishad says, Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. There is Para Asya Shakti. Asya Para Eka Shakti Asti. Sa Shakti Vividhaiva Shruyate. That one Shakti, there is only one Shakti, the Asya, the Parasya, the Brahmanasya, Brahmanaha, Para Shakti Ekaiva. There's one Shakti. Right? It's all in His will. Right? Everything is in God's will. So Shakti means the expression of God's will. So from the God in Himself to God in the expression of His will. And again, from God in the expression of His will to God in Himself, God in His own being, God in His own realm. And the whole basis of the Upanishad is the Atma Brahma, the Atma, the Harda Brahma, the Brahma inside and the Brahma outside, they are merged. So the Brahma inside, that's the Shama, and the Shabalam, that is the world, that is Prakriti. But that is also Brahma, that's the external Brahma. So the internal Brahma, which we also call the Atma, is also projected on the outside world, and everything is a reflection of the Atma. So that's now. So we're going now right into the second part. So really, the basic takeaway here from that first part was that Shankaracharya identified Shavalang with brahma-loka. Okay, so now that's our key here, because the whole important everything here in this verse surrounds that last line, brahma-lokam anu sammavishyami. So let's just read the verse one more time, and then we'll start going with Shankara's commentary. Ashwa iva romani vidhuya papam. So Ashwa iva, like a horse, romani vidhuya. So on the blog, I put that video. It's a very short video. I linked to it. What can I say? I can't buy it from the company that's selling it, so it has the watermark on it. Shutterstock, I think. But anyway, it's kind of cool. So vidhuya is that motion that is being talked about there in that video, that is being demonstrated vividly in that little video clip. So now papam. So ashwa iva romani vidhuya papam. So now vidhuya can have a double kind of meaning. So vidhuya of the hair, but also vidhuya of the papam, the washing away, the cleansing away of the sin. Right? So the important thing is the second part. So like when the horse shakes the furs on its body, and the mane also, it's, of course, why they would choose the example of a horse, dogs do the same thing. It doesn't give the example of a dog, prefers the example of a horse, and that's likely because of the mane, right? The horse's mane, and goes flying off into the air and makes a noise, and so on. Anyway, so there's another word, so vidhuya papam, so gets rid of the sin. So like this metaphor gets crossed over here, and you get the half of a metaphor on each side, right? So your vidhuya papam, so you're going, so this is the thing. So like a horse, when it shakes its head, and gets rid of dust and fatigue in that way, And the sadhaka, the person who is uttering this prayer, he says, viduya papam, that's I will be doing that. So like a horse shakes its hair and gets rid of the dust, etc., I am going to shake off the sin, the papam. So now the papam here is being interpreted as the body. Because he says, dutva shariram. So thereby getting rid of the prarabdha karma, as we were seeing previously, by getting rid of the prarabdha karma, one gives up the body. When the prarabdha karma for this body is complete, then the body dies. And then one has newly accumulated prarabdha karmas that will go into producing the next body, depending on what and where and how and so on and so forth. So, papam, he will say, so that's why we go right away, we can go into the, okay, ashva iva romani viduya papam, chandra iva rahor mukhat pramucha. So this was the interesting one, because this is the one that Jiva Goswami did not quote. So he didn't put the word papam in there, and he didn't put the word, he didn't put this line here, Chandraiva Rahor Mukhata Pramucha. So I had to wonder about that a little bit. Why didn't he just quote the whole thing? So just like the moon liberates itself from the mouth of Rahu. So is that a legitimate, let's say that if we look at it as being a legitimate for the results that we want, the result that we want here. The result, we have a result, an expected result. In this philosophical peregrination through the various meanings of these words and so on, we're looking for something. Right? And we're expecting to find certain things. So now the experiment goes on. We try to see, are those things that we discover, are they substantial or insubstantial? That kind of thing. At any rate, so the point here is it's a difficult syntax and there was an alternative reading. So the alternative reading, which well, I don't even know if it's a real alternative reading or not, was pang sung. So instead of papam, it was pang sung. So that's a very easy kind of mistake that could have been made by a copyist. So pang sung, so that makes more sense directly in terms of the example. So whether papam is needed there or not, I don't know. It could have just been pang sung and that would have been sufficient because the example is going on from there. But in the second part, the idea there is of shaking off by shaking off the dust and the sins and so on and so forth. What is left is the horse, and so the horse is the Atma, and all these other upadis and everything else, those are all shaken off. So that's the analogy of the horse. Now the analogy of the moon and Rahu is a bit more difficult. But let's say that Rahu's mouth that represents the upadis, represents the false understanding of self. And the true understanding of self escapes from out of that. And so in a way, it's like if you think of something proceeding from something else, but it has no real connection. So the moon has no connection to Rahu, and it's just coming out. It's reprising its original splendor. During the eclipse, Rahu had it tightly bound, but then it escaped and once again returned to its glorious state. So in the same way, the example here is being given that the Atma is currently covered by false identity with this body, and when it becomes awakened to its true self, it passes out of this Maya and becomes luminous in its own Swarupa. I should mention here, that we're doing this is at the very end of the Chandogya Upanishad. So we don't know the Chandogya Upanishad, and here we're at the very end. This is a very, very, I would say, inappropriate way of reading a book. But we often find that that's the situation where we're reading Jiva Goswami. We have to go back and read something that we didn't know very well. All right, so the Chandogya Upanishad in the 7th chapter and in the 8th chapter, there's a lot, it really is prayojan tattva in the sense of mukti and the goal of the realized soul and the Uttama Purush, and the way that it's described there is actually very, very much in harmony with our understanding of, with the Vaishnava understanding of tattva. Because it presents the stage of liberation as one of movement, one of action, and one of engagement with phenomena. So the liberated state is a state in the material world which is called Jivan Mukta. So in the Jivan Mukta stage, one is seeing the world, but is seeing the world from the perspective of knowledge, from the perspective of realization, from the perspective of divine insight, that everything is the manifestation of Brahman, that everything is going on by the divine will, that everything exists simply to give pleasure to the Supreme. And that's, of course, where those who stress the importance of evil and fighting with evil, they raise their ears in shock and say, you're denying the reality of evil. You can't do that. Well, if you say that evil exists in God, then you say evil is real. But if you say that evil does not exist in God, then evil is not real. Because God is the only reality. Everything is created by Him. Everything is present within His orb. Everything is encompassed by Him alone. He is the basis of all things. He is the ground of absolute being, or the absolute ground of being. So the brahma-loka, that is what we are interested in here from the previous section, and we are going on to see how we get to the brahma-loka. So the first thing was that we shake the sin, we shake off the sin, the upadis, the dust, and like the moon arising out of the trap, Rahu wants to swallow the moon, and the moon has to run away and escape. So the individual soul escapes from the shell of the upadis of the material identity and enters into his swarupa as the effulgent moon. So it's like a sequence of actions. Mixed metaphor. Anyway, liberated like the sun, like the moon. And then, so what is this going together with? It says, Dhutva shariram. So this is the last one. So, Dhutva shariram. Giving up the body. So this is what I'm saying, pramuchya and dhutva. Same verb. Akritam kritatma. So now this akritam looks like it's going with shariram. But if it's giving up the body, then akritam doesn't make sense. So what can we do then with akritam? We have to read akritam with brahma-loka. So the subject is kritva, kritatma. So now kritatma, so the kritatma, so the first two lines, ashva iva romani vidhuya papam, chandra iva rahor mukhat pramuchya, ata eva kritatma, tata sharirang dhutva, akritam brahma-lokam abhisambhavani. Like that. That I must, so the word that I'm taking personally here as being most important is abhisambhavani. Because we want to get here. So what's our desired result? Well, our desired result is not for this desired result that I'm talking about is not, pressing the data to fit a certain conclusion. In a way, yes, that's true. Because the foregone conclusion that's being given is what Jiva Goswami says it's supposed to mean. So this verse, or this passage in the Upanishad is supposed to take us to the idea of spiritual body, a siddha-deha. So how does it do that? So the grammar becomes difficult here because the shariram, it doesn't say here directly that akritam shariram. It doesn't say anything about taking a spiritual body directly. It says giving up the body and then being self-realized, self-knowledge, knowing his own true self. He takes birth in the brahma-loka. All right, so we've had so this is the point. The point is, well, that's the connection between the two halves of this mantra. The first mantra, Shankaracharya said to us that the Shavalam means brahma-loka. So now what is this brahma-loka? So as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we want a particular conclusion. We want the siddha-deha. So now how does the siddha-deha concept fit into the words of this verse? Well, in that sense here, the most important word is, so he's dhutva shariram, he's given up one body. Which body? Well, he threw it back to the previous line, says papam shariram, the body that's created, the created body. But now akritam, there's an uncreated body also. So that uncreated body is not specified here, but it is implied because abhisambhavani means I must take birth. So so giving up this body, I must take birth in the uncreated brahma-loka. That's the fulfillment because I'm kritatma, therefore I'm eligible to go there. So my prayer is that after shaking off sin and being situated in my pure self, kritatma, I will shoot forth. I will shoot forth like the moon escaping from Rahu's mouth. Projected forward in that way, I will enter the brahma-loka and take birth there, giving up the body. So the body is being compared to Rahu's mouth. So let's just look at what Shankaracharya says. So katam shavalam brahma-lokam prapadye. So there right away, he says, how will I do this? And so the thing was prapadye. So the question is being put around the word prapadye. So how will I go to the shavalam? So the first part. So start with the first part before we worry about the second part. So from Shamam I go to the Shavalam. So that Shavalam is the Brahma-lokam. So how do I surrender to that, or how do I take refuge in that? Doesn't make sense. So he says, Ashwa iva swani lomani vidhuya kampanena shramam pang swadicha romatopaniya Yatha nirmalo bhavati. Evam harda brahma jnanena vidhuya papam dharma dharmakyam. Okay. Shankaracharya is some extraordinarily clear. So Ashwa Iva, like a horse, shakes its hair, its loman, its body hairs. So I don't know whether the mane of a horse, I thought the mane of a horse would be called Kesha, like in Keshi. The Keshi was a horse. He had a mane, and that was Kesha. So Kesha is a more suitable word for the mane of a horse. So Ashva Iva Swani Lomani Vidhuya Kampanena Sramam Pangswadicha. So by this shaking, Kampanena, he rids himself, apaniya, the fatigue of the body and the dust and its other things that have accumulated in the hair, and in this way becomes nirmala, becomes pure. So in the same way, one shakes, well, it doesn't say what one shakes, but one shakes, yes, one shakes away the, by knowledge, by harda brahma jnana, by knowledge of the harda brahma. So remember, shamam is the harda brahma. So by knowledge of the harda brahma, one shakes away sin. What is sin? Dharma, dharmakyam. Duty and non-duty. Prescribed duty and forbidden actions. Both of them are assimilated under the title papa. So that's the first one. Getting rid of sin, shaking off the sin. The sin of material entanglement in any way. How? By the meditation on the Harda Brahma. So now this Harda Brahma is open, it's shama, it's an emptiness, it's an empty concept. And this empty concept needs to be filled. Nature abhors a vacuum. And so we take this nothingness of shama and we fill it with content. Sat Chit Ananda. That's the starting point. It must be Sat Chit Ananda. And on from there it goes. So Katam Shabalam Brahma-lokam Prapadye. So how will I go from the Harda Brahma? So it's by meditating on the Harda Brahma, by knowledge of the Harda Brahma, by Sravanam, Amananam, and Nididhyasanam of the Harda Brahma, trying to understand and so of course as a Vaishnava we're also doing, because our Harda Brahma is Shama. Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochane Na Santak Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yang Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Shama Sundaram. So this is we're in other Shama territory now. For us, Shama is the Abhidha Vritti is Krishna. So how do we get to this Shabalam? And what does Shabalam mean in the context of our Shamsundar? Iti uchyate, no ashvaiva swani lomani viduya kampanena sramam pangswadi charomatopanija yata nirmalo bhavati evam harda brahmagyanena viduya papam dharma dharmakyam. 1. Chandra iva cha rahu grastas tasmad rahor mukhat pramuchya baswara bhavati yatha. So just like the moon, which has been captured by Rahu, has been swallowed by Rahu, And then tasmat rahor mukat pramucha, and then liberates itself from that mouth, and again becomes full of light and becomes realizes its true form. So that was the reason that I was thinking perhaps Jiva Goswami lets it out because he doesn't want to accept the doctrine of the pure identity being situated within oneself, that you're the Atma covered. But I think that, I don't know whether that's something to be afraid of here. So I see that the Atma, the pure Atma, escaping from the imprisonment in Rahu, why not? But anyway, here he goes. So it's escaping and becomes again full of light. So now evam, right? So evam. So yatha nirmalo bhavati. Yatha rahor mukha pramucha bhasvara bhavati. Evam. In that way, dhutva prahaya shariram. So in the same way, giving up the body. Which body is sarvanartha ashraya? This body which is the source of all ills. All the anarthas are seated in this body. Nice pessimistic view of the world, right? This body, not looking at this body as the source of all potential enjoyments, they're seeing this body as the potential for spiritual realization. Seeing this body as a tool for release from the body. Taking out a thorn with another thorn. By jnana, we go to the eternal, and then we give up the jnana also. So what is the result? Evam dhutva prahaya shariram. So we're all going to have to give up this body. So wisdom is when you start to prepare for that. Wisdom is when you really take that into account. When you stop fooling yourself that this world is a place of enjoyment. Now, of course, it is a place of enjoyment. Brahma-loka is the place of God's enjoyment. But there are different leelas going on, depending on whether one is in the external manifestation of Brahma-loka or in the internal manifestation of Brahma-loka. They're all Brahma-lokas. But one of those Brahma-lokas is this world that we see, Paridrishyamanam Jagat, as conditioned souls. It's the world that we see with our own ego at the center. And the objective of exploring this world is pleasure. And of course there are different kinds of pleasure. Different kinds of intellectual pleasure, different types of egotistical pleasure, different types of mental pleasure, different types of physical pleasure. So the world is a supermarket of pleasure. So one can spend one's time exploring those pleasures. That's the Brahma-loka. And then the other Brahma-loka, the internal Brahma-loka, that's also a world of variety. But the ego here is subsumed to the supreme ego. And in one's siddha-deha, one renders service. One is engaged in an eternal relationship with God, who is the fountainhead of all mystery, and therefore the fountainhead of all rasa, the Akhila Rasamrita Murti. So that's the other Brahma-loka. The same principle is there. It's creation, but the creation is simply being viewed in a different way. So this creation is certainly a place full of sin and evil. There is no doubt about it. And that evil can befall anyone. That evil can befall me today. Someone might come. There was a sadhu, famous sadhu. Some madman came while he was speaking on the Bhagavatam and chopped his head off for no apparent reason. Such things happen, even in Vrindavan. So, Dhutva Shariram, our preparation is for death. And that is the, let's say, we were often with Hinduism, Buddhism, are criticized for being pessimistic philosophies. No, they're not pessimistic philosophies, but they do dampen the spirit of aggressive competition. Because they tell us the sad truth that pleasure in this material world is passage, is fleeting, and that one has to seek out something a little bit more substantial. But when one has wisdom, and one has bhakti, one has love, then one's perception of the material world, the so-called material world, also is transformed. This is why all the processes, including bhakti, we read the Bhagavatam, we should know that the 11th canto tells us what is an Uttama Bhagavata, and how the Uttama Bhagavatam sees the divine, sees Krishna, sees the personal God as being present in all things. There are various ways of seeing the personal God in all things. There's an intellectual way of seeing, and then there's an emotional way of seeing it also. And it's in particular from that emotional way of seeing it that one is entirely filled with love. So the purpose of this world, the purpose of evil is to actually overcome evil through love. This is actually the purpose of evil. Evil has a purpose. It has a God-given purpose. And even though evil takes on the most disgusting and horrific forms, ultimately the challenge they give to a human being to be righteous, to be true, to be honest, to be committed to love, to be committed to divine love, to be committed to service to humanity, to be committed to service to God. This kind of a commitment of the part to the whole, because this is always a commitment of the part to the whole. I am a human being, but I'm a servant of the whole. That's why bhakti starts with varnashram, because in varnashram one understands that I am a servant of the whole. In whatever position, whatever understanding that God has given me, whatever brains God has given me, whatever talent God has given me, that all of those things are meant to be used in His service. And when one does that, then the world is transformed. One's personal world is transformed. And everything becomes an adventure. One sees the world as an adventure of love, an adventure of the passage from asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Move me to the light, move me to knowledge, move me to understanding, move me to love, move me to immortality. Immortality means not affected by duality. So, evam harda brahma-jnanena viduya pavam dharma-dharmakyam chandra ivacha rahu-grastam tasmat rahor mukhapramuchya bhasvara bhavati yatha evam dhutva prahaya shariram sarvanarthasrayam ihaiva. Okay, so now we're coming to the next word. Kritatma. So now the word Kritatma means self-realized, knowing oneself. Who am I? What is the self? Krita Atma. So it's like Krita Kritya. That's what Shankara says here. Kritatma, Krita Kritya. Krita Kritya means successful, having achieved siddhi, siddha. So ihaiva dhyanena, by meditating, by contemplating on these truths, by contemplating on Shyamata Shabalam Prapadye, Shabalat Shyamam Prapadye, becoming Kritatma, becoming successful, becoming Siddha, then Akritam Nityam, so here he says Akritam means Nityam, Akritam means eternal. Brahma-lokam, in the Brahma-lokam, Abhi Sambhavani. So it's the Brahma-loka here, it's the different Brahma-loka. It's the Atkritam Brahma-loka. It's not the Kritam Brahma-loka. So the Kritam Brahma-loka means the world that is the world of karma, the product of dharma and adharma. But there is a Nityam Brahma-loka, an Akritam Brahma-loka, a non-manufactured Brahma-loka. And it is there that I wish to take birth. So I'm concentrating my interpretation here on the word abhisambhavani. Abhi meaning towards, sambhavani taking birth, like sambhavami yuge yuge. Right, so let's just see what a few people have said here. And then, depending on time, we'll just go on to the next part. So how do I surrender? So the question is prapadye, so that's where we start. This is from Shankara. Right? How do I surrender? By throwing off the dirt. So what is that dirt? It's the sin. So one has to stop sinful activity. But that sinful activity is dharma, dharmakyam. So it's very subtle. So it's not just dharma, dharma. It doesn't just mean taking the dress of a sannyasi. But this particular dharma, dharma exists on the level of the mind also, on the level of the intelligence also, on the level of ego also. So this dharma, dharmakyam, papam, this papam is expressed just like it says that kama exists. The kama exists in the senses and in the mind and in the intelligence. And also it's, by very definition, it has to exist in the ego also. Not in the pure ego, but in the false conception of self. Because the false conception of self is always going to be sinful because it is separate in its conditioning. It considers itself separate from the whole. It hasn't understood its relationship to the whole. The angsha doesn't know its relationship to the angshi. It wants to be part of the angshi, of course it wants to be part of it. But at the same time it wants to be its own independent self. It wants to be its own independent center of the conscious universe. So how to do that? How to compromise the two? Well, obviously it has to be done. So first I dismiss all sin from within me like a horse shakes off his hair and dismisses dust. I put aside my attachments to my body like the moon getting free from the clutches of Rahu. I attain brahma-loka, which is never a product of action. After I integrate myself, I attain brahma-loka. So kritatma, kritakritya san, akritam nitya brahma-lokam abhisambhavami, dvirvachanam amantra samaptyartam. So the repetition of the word abhisambhavami, that is a signal of the end of the mantra. So the mantra had these two parts. So it's a very interesting mantra for meditation and chanting. All right, like a horse shaking its body hairs to remove the dirt, I will shake off whatever spot I may have on my character. Like the moon freeing itself from the mouth of Rahu and regaining its brightness, I will, having accomplished everything, Kritatma, lay down this body, dutva shariram, and attain that eternal brahma-loka. Shaking off evil as a horse, the dust from its hair. Shaking off the body as the moon frees itself from the mouth of Rahu. I, with the self obtained, pass into the uncreated world of Brahman. Here, such an abandonment appears to take place immediately. Having shaken off the evils as a horse his hair, such an abandonment appears to take place at the time of his separation from the final body. It follows that he abandons some of his good and evil deeds at the time of his separation from the final body, and of some on the way, both these texts being equally authoritative. I don't follow that. Where I got that, I don't know. So, okay, I think we can stop there. So do we have time? Okay, I have a few minutes here. I think I'll just go off to the next. I'm not going to spend too much time on the next part. But the next part was about, okay, it was the transformation of the self-same body. So let's just go to that. So the point was, did we successfully come to see that even with Shankara's commentary, that we were talking about a transcendental body? That giving up one body, he doesn't go without a body, but he takes another body. But that body is this time the akritam brahma sharira, the brahma-loka. It's a body for the brahma-loka. That brahma-loka is a place where there's variegatedness even in brahma-jnana. That even in full knowledge of that, because one is absorbed in thought of the beloved. And so the entire world, the spiritual world, is entirely absorbed in the thought of the beloved, in consciousness of the beloved. And that love makes everything illuminated with joy and beauty. So let's just forget about the horses there for a minute. Go on to the next section, 13.2. So this is the material body can be transformed into a spiritual one. So I'm going to go through this one a bit more quickly because I got to move along here. I've got to get this thing going. So I'm being a little bit quicker, let's say, than I should be. But let's see what happens. I'm going to try to be as laid back as I can. So, kvachit prakrityapi murtir achintyaya bhagavata shaktya tadrishatvam apadyate yathoktam sri dhruvam uddishya bibrad rupam hiranmayam iti tadeva rupam hiranmayam bibrad iti tikacha. So this hiranmaya word is being used. All right, so what it means is that in certain cases, by the trans-rational potency of Bhagavan, even the material body transforms into a transcendental form. This was said of Dhruva taking a golden form, which is confirmed by Sridhar Swami in his commentary. That very same body was transformed into a golden one. Well, that's very interesting. So this Hiranmaya, his body was transformed into a gold one. So let's see what Babaji says here. In the case of Dhruva, he did not have to give up his material body. His body was transformed into a spiritual one. The word Hiranmayam, made of gold, implies a spiritual form, since a body made of gold does not make any sense. One may argue that it was not that his body turned into a spiritual one, but that it acquired a golden hue. As in some commentaries, a Prakasha Bahulam, If that were the case, then the word should properly have been Hiranyavarnam instead of Hiranmayam, Hiranyavarnam, golden color. So Hiranmayam doesn't mean golden color, it means made of gold. So the word Hiranmaya is also sometimes translated as effulgent, such as in Taittiriya Upanishad, but there the self is described as, so this, I have to rewrite that sentence a little bit, I added the sentence, but the idea is in the Taittiriya Upanishad, there's an expression, the liberated soul is called Amrita Hiranmaya. So Hiranmaya here has a kind of a terminology usage. It's being used in a specific way according to the language that has grown around the Upanishads. So the Upanishads, Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasyapi Hitamamukham, and so on. The word Hiranmayatva, this idea of Hiranmaya, that this Hiran is something that pops up frequently as being descriptive of Brahman or an aspect of Brahman, the covering of Brahman, Hiranmayena Patrena, and so on. So there are all these different uses of the word Hiranmaya. It has a particular connection here in the Taittiriya Upanishad. He says, Amritaha Hiranmaya, that the eternal, the beyond death is golden. So the living entity in the liberated state is Amrita, is immortal, and Hiranmaya, and full of light. So this idea of Hiranmaya as being spiritual, as having a meaning of spirituality, and this is perfectly acceptable and logical. So it is to be understood that Dhruva's mother, Suniti, must also have received a spiritual body with Dhruva, because she too ascended with him to Vaikuntha in another plane, in another car, or another one of these spiritual vehicles. I don't like so much the word plane. I must change it to vehicle here. So this is possible by Bhagavan's trans-rational potency, since for him there's no absolute difference between his different energies. So this, we were just talking about this. And one can be transformed into another. Matter can become spirit and vice versa. This idea has already been explained earlier when it was said that one needs spiritual senses in order to perceive Bhagavan's form, sakshatkara. In fact, the next verse, to be quoted below by Sri Jiva Prabhu, has been used by Krishnadas Kaviraj as evidence for this kind of transformation. So it's used a little bit differently in the next part, so I'm just quoting it here. And we'll go into it in more detail in the next section, in the next reading. So smartyo yada tyapta samasta karma niveditatma vichakirshito me tadamritatvam pratipadyamano mayatma bhuyaya chakalpate vai. So, whenever a mortal gives up all works and completely surrenders himself to me, engaging in activities according to my desire, then he attains immortality by my grace, becoming equal to me in spiritual quality. So now this is the translation for that verse, but the way that Kaviraj Goswami translates it, where he uses it as a praman to support the following concepts, which are stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it comes in two places. Sharanalaya kore Krishne Atma Samarpan. All right, so in the next section, we'll see that Jiva Goswami gives reference to 309, to Bhakti Sandarbha 309. So we're going to go, we don't have much to look at there because the subject is Atma Samarpan. So really what I'm doing is I'm connecting this particular section with the next section. We're engaged in a big segue here. And so the segue is that from Sharanalaya Kore Krishne Atma Samarpan Krishna Tare Kore Tat Kale Atma Shama Sharanalaya kore Krishna Atma Samarpan. Krishna tare kore tat kale Atma Sama. As soon as a devotee has sincerely taken shelter of Krishna and surrendered to him, Krishna makes him equal to himself, Atma Sama. So Atma Bhuyaya Chakalpate Vai in the Sanskrit version, right? So Tadhamritatvam Pratipadyamano. So Pratipadyamano is very much like Abhisambhavami. So Tadamritatvam, so Amritatvam to the brahma-loka. Maya Atma Bhuyaya, so there by me he is made to be worthy of my self-manifestation, my Atma Bhuya. So this Bhuya word, well, let's just say here that we'll translate it as become equal to me in spiritual quality. Let's just leave it there. But the idea Atma Bhuyaya, because this Bhuya word comes up in the Bhagavad Gita also, right? Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. So it's the same wording. Now, so Atma Bhuya and Brahma Bhuya would be the same thing. But here it means something more, because it's Krishna speaking to Uddhava, and one becomes and enters into my universe. Atma Bhuyaya becomes like me, eternal. So in the next verse, what Jiva Goswami is going to do, use it for, is for Sarshti Mukti, the same opulences. Atma Bhuya means the same opulences. Bhuya meaning vibhuti, meaning bhuti. So Atma Vibhutaye, you could say. So he becomes worthy by my grace, Maya. By my grace, he becomes worthy of my personal internal energy. Now this is taking place in, yada tyakta samasta karma niveditaatmo vichikirsato me. So 3 conditions. He's given up all material karmas. He surrendered himself to me, nivedita atma. Vichikirsato me. He wants to act only for the pleasure of Bhagavan. So when those 3 conditions are met, tada, going towards immortality, or entering the realm of immortality, he becomes worthy of equality to me by my grace. So you have to, in order to worship God, one has to become God. This is something that we'll encounter again. So here, this is what he's talking about. To approach the divine, one must become divine. So one has to give up sin, tyakta samasta karma, nivedita atma, surrender to the Supreme Lord. So that's where the connection is to Priti Sandarbha 309. But here let's look at how Kaviraj Goswami takes up those same points. So Sharana Laya Kore Krishna Atma Samarpana Krishna Tare Kore Tatkale Atma Shama. So that Atma Bhuyaya, Atma Shama, makes him equal to himself. And now here in a further time, in Mahaprabhu's instructions to Sanatana Goswami and Jagannath Puri, he says, Diksha Kale Bhakta Kore Atma Samarpan, Shei Kale Krishna Tare Kore Atma Shama. So he says the same thing that he just said before, only this time he adds the Diksha Kale. So that he's equated doing Atma Samarpan, the act of self-surrender, has to take a physical and real external manifestation in surrendering to the Guru. Important point. So Diksha Kale Bhakta Kore Atma Samarpan, Se Kale Krishna Tare Kore Atma Samo, Se Deha Kore Tara Chidanandamoy, Aprakrito Dehe Tara Krisharana Bhajay. Sei deha koritar chidanandamoy aprakrito dehetar charana bhajay. So we're still talking about siddha-deha. So here he's saying that this deha, this material body, becomes aprakrita when one takes initiation, when one surrenders oneself, formally surrenders oneself. And then after that point, this body becomes chidanandamoy, becomes spiritual, because without a spiritual body you can't serve Krishna. Right? So this is, Diksha is especially connected to puja, archana. But in actual fact, it's engaged all the senses. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevana. When one engages the senses in the service of the master of the senses, the owner of the senses, the true self, the higher self, the divine self, who resides within me, when my senses are being used for his pleasure, in his service, in full knowledge that he is the all-pervading super soul, who exists inwardly and outwardly. So this body, in order to serve that divine truth, my body must also, my senses must be transformed. So now the process, the senses, the internal senses have been transformed. You know now, the senses know now what to look for, right? Our senses are our choice, right? Your senses detect movement and detect possible danger, is aware for sounds. Just like we watch the monkeys here. The monkey will, he's heard something, he's got to react. Fight or flight. Gives you a dirty look. So at the time of initiation, when a devotee surrenders to the spiritual master, Krishna makes him equal to himself. He transforms the devotee's body into spiritual substance. The devotee then worships the Lord in that spiritualized body. In view of this, then, there is nothing unusual about a pure devotee's entering the spiritual realm in a body that was original material in nature, though it is most infrequent. No, we don't do that kind of thing because it messes up the scenario. We can't have things like that. All right then, so we stop here. And tomorrow we will continue on. We'll just leave on, continue on with Anuched 13. Om Shyamat Shavalang Prapadye Shavalat Shyamang Prapadye Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Purnam Madhah Purnam Midam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Jai Jai Sri Radhe Jai Jai Sri Radhe Jai Jai Sri Radhe Shyam